Part 1. The Hubris. The rainfall outside the penthouse didn't match the absolute stillness inside. He sat at a mahogany desk, the glow from his laptop illuminating stack after stack of foreclosure notices and medical bills. They belonged to a family he had never met until a month ago. A family whose lives were unraveling under the weight of a sudden medical crisis. He was transferring funds, trying to anchor them before the midnight eviction deadline. Behind him, the door clicked. She walked in, wearing an evening gown that cost more than the struggling family's annual income. She smelled of expensive perfume and cold rain. She didn't look at him. She looked at her own reflection in the glass, complaining about the gala he had missed, dismissing his efforts as an obsession with a charity case. When her phone buzzed with a text from the pilot confirming the jet was fueled and the safe was cleared, she didn't blink. She walked up, placed a cold hand on his shoulder, and told him to do what he had to do. Then she kissed his cheek and left, telling him not to wake her. He turned back to the screen and hit the authorization key to clear the family's primary debt. Transaction. Denied insufficient funds. He frowned, shifting to his secondary liquid accounts. Access. Denied incorrect security token. Panic setting in, he logged into his primary wealth management portal. The screen showed a balance that makes his stomach drop. Account after account had been wiped entirely clean. Over $40 million in liquid savings, offshore holdings, and immediate bonds were gone. He burst into the master suite, shouting her name. The room was empty. The walk-in closet doors gaped wide, stripped of her designer wardrobe. The wall safe was smashed open, its velvet trays completely bare. On the vanity sat her wedding ring, resting on top of a power of attorney form he had signed months ago, now heavily modified with forged addendums. His phone rang. It was his security chief, calling from a private airfield. She wasn't alone. She was boarding a Gulfstream with the very portfolio manager he had fired for embezzlement the previous year. Because of a domestic abuse injunction she had filed digitally 2 hours prior, the plane and the liquidated assets were legally tied to a corporate shell in her name. If security stepped onto the tarmac, they would be arrested. The engines were already spooling up. He dropped the phone. On paper, he was still a billionaire, but he was completely locked out of his own life, paralyzed and bankrupt. An hour later, he stood in the dim, peeling hallway of a stark apartment complex. He knocked on the door of the family he was trying to save. A young woman opened it, clutching a sleeping infant, her eyes red from crying. Behind her, her husband sat at a kitchen table buried under eviction paperwork. She asked if the wire had gone through, noting the sheriffs were arriving at dawn. He looked at them, knowing that if he told them he had been ruined, their hope would die right there. He told her there had been a technical complication with his accounts. As her face fell, he unbuckled his watch, a rare vintage timepiece worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. He placed it gently into her trembling hands. He told her to take it to a jeweler he knew on Fifth Avenue who would buy it on the spot, no questions asked. The husband stood up, shaking his head, saying they couldn't take his personal property. He smiled faintly, his voice steady. He told them his wife had taken his fortune, his houses, his bank accounts, and his status tonight. But he reminded them that she had forgotten a man's true worth isn't kept in a vault. He held the young woman as she broke down in tears of relief, looking over her shoulder through the window at the glittering skyline below. He had lost everything that made him powerful to the world, but for the first time in his life, he felt entirely unburdened.